We have our 2021 costs and year in review of what it costs us to live in our motorhome. We're Kristen, Jameson, and Maddie. We've been living in our motorhome while both working full-time for over 2 years. This season is all about building community on the road and sharing more behind the scenes of our RV life along the way. It took us a few weeks to balance the books, but we have our 2021 costs and year in review of what it costs us to live in our motorhome, mostly off-grid, full-time.
So the cost for 2021 for us was $12,817.
Which breaks down to $1,068 per month. So this includes all of the expenses related to living in a motorhome full-time. For us, we included repairs and supplies and RV club memberships and even tours that we thought maybe we wouldn't do otherwise if we weren't living in a motorhome full-time. But it does not include
what the Jeep cost us for the year, our personal cell phones and internet expenses, and also what we ate and drank throughout the year.
Yeah, it doesn't include health care, any of your regular expenses you'd have living anywhere else.
Yeah, we didn't include the Jeep because anyone could have a different tow vehicle or may not have a tow vehicle, so we just thought it was something that we'd exclude because it's not the same for everyone.
And we would like to add a disclaimer. We know everyone budgets differently. This is just the way we chose to do it, and we hope it will help you.
We did have an upfront cost to be able to start boondocking life, and we wanted to do it with solar and not running our generator all the time. And solar and batteries to do that is not necessarily cheap, but it is a generally one-time upfront cost to be able to live off-grid and live freely. So that cost us about $10,000 for a full solar setup of 1,440 watts and 500 amp hours of battery.
Yeah. And our accountant friends reminded us that you can amortize that expense out over the cost of the solar system, which is at least 10 years.
Yep.
We don't know if we will live in this bus for 10 years, but it's about $1,000 a year over the life of the solar system. To us, that was worth it.
Definitely.
Okay, so first up, surprised us a little bit because little things can really add up. So our biggest category of expense this year was RV parts, supplies, and repairs. We do know that some of the things we bought this year, we likely will not have to buy again in the whole life that we own this rig. But it is what it is. We wanted to give real numbers, and some friends of ours have told us that they budget similar amounts monthly for unexpected maintenance. And for us this year, it was $3,947 for the year, which is $329 per month. And we will continue to budget at least $300 a month going forward for this year for unexpected things that come up.
Yeah, and I mean, some of the stuff that came up for the past year for us was us starting boondocking and like opening and closing the slides way more than they ever were when we'd stay at parks for a month. Just moving way more frequently, going off-road, some stuff just rattled apart. So some of the stuff that we had will not be there next year, but next year something else could rattle and break. So we have our annual maintenance. We need to replace the anode in our hot water heater. We need to do it or check it about once a year, and usually you should replace it about the same frequency. Oh wow. It's not completely gone, but awesome.
We're getting all new AC shrouds today.
Yep, thanks to the nor'easter. So one of our biggest expenses for 2021 was fuel. We drove more than we usually do, and it ended up being $35.40.
Yeah, so about $300 a month in fuel. kind of sounds like a lot when you listen to the annual figure, but for us, when we broke it down to monthly, it was like, wow, we probably paid that much when we didn't live in an RV and we had monthly, commuting costs and just regular vehicle expenses. So it doesn't actually seem so bad to us. But we did drive all the way around the country, pretty much from south to north and east to west and back again in one giant circle. So we drove 8,817 miles, and it was about 1,000 gallons in fuel. All right, day 3.
First 100.
Fill up number 1.
We should have pre-auth.
We're gonna do these one swipe at a time. Do you need another card? We just pulled into our first Buc-ee's. Feels like a bit of a rite of passage, I guess, for a road warrior. But it is chaos. We are used to only dealing with semis and truckers, and this is nuts. It is really cheap compared to everything else we saw on Gas Buddy, so hopefully this is worth it. Great job, honey. Diesel $3.35 as promised.
The next biggest expense for us was parking, and even though we boondocked primarily throughout the year, we still had to pay for campgrounds and stuff where we couldn't actually stay for free, and that ended up being $21.36 for the year.
Yeah, especially going to the East Coast, there's a lot less BLM land and free open public land for parking. So this is maybe a slightly higher year for us because we did go to the East Coast. I expect it to be a little bit less if we stay out west for most of this year.
Yep.
But I do think that, $200 a month is a really reasonable amount to expect to pay for parking, even if you are primarily trying to boondock. And we were able to stay at some really cool places. I've listed them here. We not only paid to park at RV parks, but also some really cool state parks, national parks, an Army Corps of Engineers park that we really loved. It was waterfront up in Idaho. It was amazing. And we've found that we really love hip camps. And we even stayed at some county fairgrounds during some festive, fun times. Like, I would continue to pay for most of these places. So I don't think this expense is going to go down too much for us. It's gonna scare you. Little pool volleyball. It's pretty cool. Super cute little library. I love a good place to do a puzzle. It's hard to come by in RV life. A fitness room. We didn't make it over here. Lots of equipment. We have full-timers RV insurance with National General, and right now the cost is $14.52 just for our motorhome. We have been in the process of getting Jameson's Florida residency and transferring the Jeep over to Florida plates as well. And we will get a little bit of a deal once we bundle those together. But the motorhome alone for 2021 was $14.52 for full-time coverage.
RV rallies are something that we did in 2021 to help find community, help find friends, and it was not cheap, but it was something that we found that it was well worth it because all the experiences and time that we got to spend with friends. It cost us $700 for the year for all the rallies.
Yeah, and that is a true cost of about $1,200 for the year, but we volunteered at half of the rallies that we went to,
Yep.
So we got a good discount. And while it was a priority for us this year to seek community on the road, I don't see us doing much fewer rallies in the future because now we have all these friends that we want to go and see. So Hopefully this cost will remain about the same.
Yeah, and one way to do that is try to volunteer as much as possible, like we said. And like Kristen taught yoga at a couple, and I helped with parking at one, so that way we could try to offset it as much as possible. And I think it made a difference.
Yeah, I think it's worth it. We're here at the RV Entrepreneur Summit in Montrose, Colorado.
Did you guys have a good time tonight?
We had a great time.
Next up, propane. And we spent a little bit more than we thought, but it was $605 for the year.
Yeah, $10 or $12 here and there to refill our grill tank really added up. We use propane for cooking, for our water heater, for our furnaces, which is our heating, and also we run our fridge on propane most of the time.
Yep.
Just filled up. It's an interesting spot. They have the propane right on the front of the store like this, so we're definitely blocking everything.
So something that we need to do quite often is dump and fill. And we do our best to try to find free places to do this, and there's tons of resources to find free places to dump and fill. But we did end up spending $104 for the year, which really is not that bad to dump and fill our bus.
We estimate that we have to dump and fill our tanks about 30 to 35 times a year, and this year we had to pay for about 10. And generally, if we're headed to an RV park or a state park with a free dump, we will plan our boondocking so that we get to a dump station and a water fill when we are going to need it. But sometimes you just have to pay for a standalone, and that's this cost.
Boondocking, I mean, it's nice to find these little RV parks. Much rather give our money to them than going to like a pilot or anything. Just seems better to give our money to a small business. Alright, tanks are all dumped, so we'll just pull around and get some water filled up, but gotta get this all disconnected first.
We have a 100-gallon tank, and here at the Saddle Vista RV Park, it was $20 to dump and fill. There's nobody else here, so we're gonna take our time and hook up our filters and use our water softener and fill it all the way up.
The last category for us is tolls. We don't spend that much time back east where tolls are needed, but we did this year. We went back to see family, and we ended up spending $66 this year for tolls.
Yeah, not too bad. I was afraid with a big motorhome that it could have cost a lot more, but we did everything we could to plan ahead, and we got this Uni Pass, and
it works really well. So it works on the E-Pass and a lot of the other ones on the East Coast, and it worked well for everywhere that we were going.
It covers 19 states, and as far as we can tell, it is the only pass that does cover multiple places like that.
And so that was our year. $12,000 or $12,817 may not be what you spent. Hopefully it's not what we spend next year, but that's what it cost us for 2021.
When we cut the cord from RV parks, we expected life to be free. So it was a little hard to see that it still cost us $1,000 a month. But we've just done so much more living than we did when we used to stay at RV parks for a month or two. So it's worth it.
Yeah, I mean, when we were at RV parks with the van, we didn't travel nearly as much as we did this year. So in this year, we lived, I think, so much more.
Yeah.